Today on the Marketing Essentials podcast, we'll be discussing the essentials of branding. Coming live to you from the Sprout co-working space in Providence, Rhode Island.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about branding, and we have Bill Parmentier from W. Parmentier Photography.
Hi, everyone.
We also have Alicia, owner of Custom Marketing Solutions, and myself, Justin Kerr from Justin Kerr Design. So, branding is the topic for the day, and I think we should probably start by talking about what we think branding is, because I think we probably all have a slightly different take on it. But we need to come up with a definition before we start talking about why is it important.
Sure.
Alicia, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of people think of a brand as a logo and maybe a color palette and how they're going to incorporate that into their website. One of the things that I think is important is also the voice behind the brand. So when you're developing your company, you want to think about who are the people you're talking to, and are you fun and laid back? Are you in a more serious industry? And also that carries through to the people that you hire, the employees that you put on your staff. How can you have your whole company culture embody your brand?
Yeah, I agree. I look at it as the brand is the entire customer experience. So, the logo is definitely part of it, but it's more of a trigger point. So, let's just take, for example, Wendy's, right? So you can picture the Wendy's logo in your head, right? Because you've seen it a million times. Little redhead girl.
Pigtails.
Right?
Yeah.
Pigtails. But when you think about Wendy's, you also think about the last time you were there, maybe what you had. Was it a good experience? Was it a bad experience?
Frosty and chicken nuggets.
Chicken, right, exactly. And maybe the experience you had with the staff there, or maybe an ad that you saw on TV. So it's a whole experience. And you talked about voice, which is very important.
Yeah.
It's, to have a voice that matches the mission and personality of the organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bill, being the image expert, what would you say, in regards to brand, how does that fit into your overall brand?
Well, it's a great question. For me, definitely branding, when I think about branding, is what does a video say about the company's brand? What does your photo say about it? Because it's so often when a company is discussing the idea of branding, they don't think immediately about, well, what's the importance of how this photo is going to look as compared to my branding, or how's this video going to look? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times that's kind of an afterthought. So it's something that's definitely something I come up against when I talk to my clients.
So one of the, as sort of a way of, I guess, of provide an example for this, maybe we could do a little word association with brands.
Yeah.
So, and just the first 3 or 4 things that pop into your head when I say Starbucks.
Coffee.
The mermaid emblem, I can't explain it, but it's a visual.
Right. Okay. So mermaid, coffee. What else?
Hipsters.
Hipsters, yeah, definitely.
They're taking over.
All right. Now, so when I say Starbucks, can you picture the inside of a Starbucks?
Yeah, they all look the same.
All right. But what stands out? Like when you walk into Starbucks versus say Dunkin' Donuts or any other place, like what are you seeing?
Yeah, it's more of that loungy kind of feel, a coffee shop feel, a real laid back vibe. They usually have that cool music playing. They even feature their CDs on the stand. They have healthier snacks.
Barista behind the counter with a man bun.
Yes,
Yeah.
always have to have that. So it's more of an upscale coffee shop. That's
Yeah.
what they're going for, and a cool place to hang out.
Cool. So all of that, everything that you just mentioned, is part of their brand, and Starbucks works really hard to make sure that that's what they project.
Right. When they're hiring, they specifically ask, "Do you have a man bun?"
Maybe they
That's
do.
Check here.
So that puts me right out.
Yeah, I don't, we could. They have things that you like wigs.
I was gonna say, do they make glue-on man buns?
I think
Oh,
so.
God.
Yeah.
I think it ended up looking like a Hare Krishna.
Actually,
but-
I did see. I mean, you have to have hair to begin with, but I did see this thing that you could attach a man bun to your hair, like
Oh,
so,
gosh.
but I don't.
like an
have-
extension. I know, but you have to start with hair, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we're not even gonna go there.
Oh
We don't
man, we're
know
going
this
way
now.
off the edge here.
All
Well,
right.
other things about their brand beyond the man buns and the expensive coffee. What
Yeah.
else does Starbucks have to offer in their visual and branding and
Well, I
experience?
think it's a very, for the most part, I find it to be a very relaxed atmosphere. I mean, even when it's crowded, I think it has a lot to do with the decor and the furniture and the way they lay out the stores.
yeah.
And what's interesting about Starbucks is, unlike, say, a McDonald's, where they build their building, and every McDonald's you walk into is almost exactly the same layout. I've seen Starbucks, be put into existing spaces, like in the first floor of a hotel, or there's one here in Providence that's this tiny little Starbucks that's kind of wedged in this space underneath one of the hotels here, right next to like the Dunkin' Donuts Center. And so but you still get a similar feel no matter which one you go into, even though the configurations can vary wildly. I mean, there's one out in Seekonk that's in an old bank.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I know which one you're talking about.
So I think they do a good job of taking their brand and sort of fitting it into wherever the location happens to be. Even if you're like at an airport and you walk by a Starbucks, you're going to get a little bit of that same vibe, even
before
if it's.
you even see it, before you see the sign,
Right.
you know it's a Starbucks.
And I think a successful brand builds expectations. So the logo is the trigger point. So you see that logo and you go, oh, I know exactly what to expect. So you're walking down, a concourse in an airport, you see the Starbucks mermaid, you're like, I need to get a whatever, a latte.
I can expect that I'm going to spend more on coffee than I normally do.
Right, but you
because I
already
want
know
Starbucks.
what the quality is going to be. You know what your experience is going to be before you ever reach that destination.
Yeah.
So-
And you're going to pay $10 for the coffee.
Yeah, because then you think you're going to get a coffee, but then you look and you're like, whoa, that latte, frappe, soy nut thing sounds amazing. That's what I get.
I'm a plain coffee kind of guy, so you lose me when you start getting into that stuff.
So yeah, and then you had mentioned the Dunkin' Donuts Center, and I think when you think of Dunkin', their slogan is actually "America runs on Dunkin'," and I think Dunkin' is going for more of that, coffee on the go. You're busy, we have coffee for you. They don't always have that kind of like loungy space or that, but they have a different look. So that's brands and
Dunkin's actually going through a sort of a brand identity shift right now. I've heard rumors that they're thinking of, ditching the whole donut part of
No.
their
Yeah, they're trying to be
business.
more health conscious. I don't know how you can be health conscious with donuts. But
And I think there'd be a
That's
lot of
unnatural.
pushback. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that the donuts are the best donuts in the world, but it is part of their brand. It's part of their identity.
big part of their brand. It's part of their name.
So exactly. So making this shift for them is huge. But I think there's a certain perception of Dunkin' Donuts versus Starbucks. I mean, I know all different kinds of people go into Dunkin' Donuts to get their morning coffee, but I do think the perception of their brand is a little bit more blue collar versus Starbucks, which is a little bit more upscale.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, this is just personal preference. I happen to like Dunkin' Donuts coffee because I just don't like dark roast coffee.
Yep.
It just tastes a little burnt to me, But
Wait, don't you drink decaf?
I do. So I really
doesn't
can't.
even
Yeah,
count.
you know what? I can't even
But,
speak.
but here's the weird thing. I like dark roast coffee, but I don't like Starbucks.
Yeah.
I like the Dunkin' dark roast because it's a little bit milder on the dark side.
Yeah.
Go to the dark side. I don't know.
Yeah. But the thing is, so
Alright.
even though we have our preferences, a good brand will stay memorable.
Way to pull us back, Alicia.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it will.
So it's
and
not your cup of tea or coffee.
cup
rather.
of coffee.
But
Right.
you know Starbucks and you visually and it's memorable, and so
Sure, sure.
Yeah,
Well, that was one word association. We took one.
yeah. Well, I
one
think
word.
you get the idea that the brand is the whole experience,
Sure.
and so I think now that you have an understanding of okay, what is a brand? Well, how do you create one?
Yeah.
Because I don't think I know our audience is not Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah.
Our audience is small and mid-sized companies, and they're thinking, great, Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, that's good for them. But what do I do? How do I create a brand? So, I think the first step is to figure out who you are, right? Because your brand is going to reflect who you are as an organization.
So so how do you figure out who you are? How do you put that into words, I guess?
Well,
a great
I think
question.
you need to, sit down and however this works best for you, whiteboard, sticky notes on the wall, legal notepad, whatever, but you need to figure out what it is that you do best, who your target audience is, what makes you unique, what's your unique value proposition, what's your personality, because if you're like me, if you're a sole proprietor or if you're a small business that the personality sort of comes from the owner, what's your personality?
Right.
Are you serious and buttoned down? Are you a little bit more fun-loving? Are you're kind of wacky? Or what's your personality? Because that becomes part of your brand too.
And what about should your industry play into your message? So how does that?
Yeah, because that's how your brand is going to be how you're perceived or how you'd like to be perceived. So you need to understand the industry that you're in.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have a very different branding if you're a law office versus, say, something like Tom's.
Yes.
It's going to be
Tom's the shoes.
Tom's shoes. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes. Not Tom's of Maine, but Tom's the shoes. They're going to have a more airy, fun-loving kind of thing, whereas your typical
Right.
law office is going to be more buttoned down, more
Yep.
official looking.
I mean, one way you can think about it is when you get up in the morning, you style your hair,
Some of us.
some of the styles.
Again with the hair.
This is-
I can see. I can sense a theme starting here. Well, it's bad enough we had to pick on you. And we didn't mention the coffee milk that's sitting here. Justin, can you show us the coffee milk, please?
Yes,
We
absolutely.
are going to have Alicia try this for the first time. For those of you who listened to the first podcast, Alicia mentioned that she has never tried coffee syrup.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
a new Rhode Islander.
So we're really trying to help Alicia sort of blend into the Rhode Island atmosphere and
Yes.
Sure.
I have to become familiar with Rhode Island brands.
right.
Become with
So
one with the
Autocrat
coffee
is
milk.
going to be our first.
Sponsor.
No,
Can only hope, right?
yeah. I was trying to sort of give an example of how you
How
can
you
think
start.
about your brand. It's like, well, you get up every day, you put on certain clothes, you
Sure.
put on certain accessories. You want to present a certain image.
Absolutely.
And that's based on how you want to look to the rest of the world. So, like you said, if you're a lawyer, you're gonna wear a business attire.
You're not wearing board shorts and a t-shirt.
No, I mean, unless you're a really special kind of lawyer. But you want to present yourself in a certain way because you want people to respond to you a certain way. Well, your
Right.
organization's brand is the same thing. You have to think about how do I want to present this company to the marketplace and to potential clients.
Yeah.
So once you've sat down and you've kind of been able to map that out, then you can really start to say, okay, based on what our mission is, based on who our audience is and how we want to present ourselves, and you can really start thinking about, well, what's the best way to present that visually? What's the best way to present that as part of our company culture?
Voice.
Employees, who do we want
Yeah.
to hire?
So Justin,
What kind of photography?
where do you start when a company comes to you and says, "Hey, look, you know what? Our branding's kind of muddled right now. We need to work on it." Where do you start? Do you start from? Is there a certain starting point? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah.
That you would go to before you even went anywhere with anything.
Conversation.
Okay.
Nice.
I want to sit down and have a conversation with the client, and whether it's a single person or whether it's a group of people, you want to hear their story.
Sure.
So you block out an hour or two, and you say, all right, just tell me about the company. Tell me how you started. Tell me some of the how you grew and developed, and tell me how you got to your present marketing, and your present brand. And then you talk about, well, where would you like to be a year from now, or where would you
Sure.
like to be 3 years from now, and what kind of how do you want to project yourself? And just have conversations. And in the course of those, you can begin to separate where they are from where they would like to be.
Okay. So now, let's say that they don't really have a full idea. Do you help them to kind of form that, if you will? Or do you
Sure.
kind of leave it up to them to try to figure out a design?
Well, one of the things that can be part of the process is looking at other companies that sort of do what they do in the marketplace. So if they're let's say they're an auto mechanic shop, right? So look at the competition. What are some of the other auto mechanic shops doing in regards to marketing and their branding? And you can look locally, you can look nationally. You're not really limited. So you're looking for points of inspiration. And there may be one in particular, they may point to, say Pep Boys, and they go, I really like the whole Manny Mo Jack thing, it's kind of old fashioned, but it kind of represents family, and you feel, when you go in there, you feel like you're dealing with, sort of a family owned business, even though it's a big national chain.
Sure.
So they may look at something like that and go, I'd really like to emulate that. So then you can talk to them about how they can emulate that, not, completely mimic Pep Boys, but what is it about their organization or company that you can pull out to say, we want to give a similar feel, we want to give a similar kind of brand.
Okay, so now let's take it a step to the next step. You've got them nailed down as far as what their brand identity is.
Yeah.
Where do you go from there? How does that translate into, in your case, the website? And Alicia, how does it translate into how you put them forth on social media?
Right, that's a good question, because so you have all these ideas and you have all these mission statements and kind of key points. How do you translate that into visuals and put it out there to the public? So do you want to start talking about, I think the website is really important. It's one of the first touch points now that people have with a lot of local businesses. Even referrals, guys. If your business is being referred word of mouth, guess what people are going to do? They're going to go online and they're going to look you up first before they come in.
Sure.
So the website, let's start there.
All right, so Justin, you had an example of one of them, right?
Well, yeah, I wanted to use this example to kind of show just how pervasive a brand can be, and all the different places it touches, and some of the different things that you want to consider. So Chobani has recently rebranded themselves. So this is an example of sort of a visual survey of where they were. So you've got several different products, you've got their website, you've got some kiosk and some branding there. You've got a good example of the photography and how they were presenting themselves. So that's where they were.
Yeah, and I want to, so their website, so they're a product, so it's a little different because it's not a service, so product might be the first touch point. But their website, it's really interesting because is that their homepage website there? The yogurt isn't featured, right?
Right.
It's actually.
So one of the part of their branding is, or at least the previous branding, was to drive home the point that we use natural ingredients.
Yeah, that looks like it's from some guy's farm up in New Hampshire.
Exactly. So
not a factory.
Yeah, I mean,
and this is where
a great
photography. Yeah, Bill,
Absolutely.
you could probably talk about this. This is where photography can really anchor a message.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, because that one picture of the page where you see the farm, that induces the idea of farm fresh. You know, it gives you that country kind of feel, but that organic feel.
Right.
And Chobani has been known for starting to work their way into the organics field. So for them, that would be a great thing. But I also see that they also show other ways that the yogurt's being used through photography. You can see it right on that photo next. I don't know if you can put the
right here,
where it shows pictures of how they're actually using their yogurt in different meals and different dishes and stuff like that.
Ooh, that's
Right.
really creative.
as a recipe ingredient.
Yeah, and that's another great way that a product, especially a food product like yogurt, can be used. You can use photography to kind of show the different uses and how to go about using it for other than just eating it
Yeah.
for
So-
breakfast.
Putting
you know?
it into someone's daily life.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
trying
exactly.
to. Yep.
Exactly.
Now,
Right.
I would assume that those type of photos also work well into social media.
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
so-
Social media is all about your everyday experiences.
I mean,
Yeah.
I know you have some clients that do hair care, like salons,
Mhm.
right? So you're not going to show a picture of, a barber chair, right?
Right. Right.
What you're going to show is you're going to show a woman who has just come out of this salon. Her hair looks great. She's got a big smile on her face. You're showing an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And you're showing something that another person can relate to and say, I want to feel like that.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, getting to the bottom of it. It's not just to have a hairstyle. It's to, when women especially go, there's like a big hair theme today, but when women go to the salon to get their hair done, it's not cheap. Sometimes it's pretty expensive. And so there's an experience that goes along with that. They want to feel that they're looking their best when they walk out. So capturing that woman who is confident and fresh out of the salon is part of the brand.
Did you have more on the Chobani site you wanted to show? Just
Um,
because I can get you back over. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to show how they've.
Hang on a second.
Changed.
Let me have control.
That's
for
a
second,
good point. Is a brand static? Once you develop your
There you
brand,
go.
does it end
Okay.
there? Or does it continue, Justin?
No, I think the brand continues to develop, and this is why companies like Chobani, at certain points in their evolution, will revisit their branding and say, are we still on message here? Because as the company grows and develops, they may be taking on other products in their line, or they may be taking on other services. So you've got to make sure that your brand can scale as your business scales. So, Chobani, I think, looked at their current branding and said, we need to adjust this a little bit, because they did bring on some other elements to their company. And so you can see here, you have the logo, the word mark, and then you can see how it's integrated into, all of these other elements of the company. So you've got products, you've got
A cafe.
a cafe,
Ooh.
you've got other divisions within Chobani, and it's like it's got to all fit together. So they developed a new color palette.
So this is the new version of it?
This is the new version. This is the rebrand, and if you go into the store today, this is what you'll see.
Yeah, it threw me off, actually. I couldn't find Chobani at first.
Yeah, and that's one of the things is like when a company does rebrand is they've got to work really hard to make sure that they're not going to alienate their
Their old-
existing
Sure.
customer base as they try to attract new.
Now, first thing I noticed, and maybe this is just this section of what you're showing here is just based on the typeface and the colors, but I'm seeing more icons, less photography type based stuff. Was that intentional, or is that just something separate from what you're dealing with here? What you're showing here.
They're still going to use photography in their marketing, but I think they wanted to develop broader language with their branding. So it's not just the logo and the color palette, but there's, typefaces that are involved, and there's these illustrative icons that they're going to be integrating into their branding. And I think it all has to do with, the different direction that they want to take this in. So now you can see that they've got some new photography, a little bit different look and feel to it, though, from that farm scene that we saw and some of the recipe stuff. So
Yeah, what I'm looking at here reminds me of like a Polaroid type of feel.
mhm.
To me, I'm looking at that, and it reminds me of the old either Instamatic cameras or the Polaroid style cameras. Very saturated.
Which are back in style now.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well,
that
for like
is
fun.
to an extent. For now,
yeah,
it is. But,
for fun.
Everything kind of works itself in cycles. But
Yeah.
I can see what they're doing with it. Is it's very, like I said, very saturated. Very.
Yeah, and it's definitely got even the typography and the other stuff that they've adjusted in their brand definitely has sort of a 70s feel to it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
I would
that-
say, oops, sorry.
Go ahead,
Justin.
no.
I would say those are Instagram worthy in the social media world. It looks like they're positioning their pictures for Instagram in those.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, they're adjusting their target audience down,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know?
Right. So is that it? Do you have more on the
Yeah,
page
I mean,
there?
that you can see that they've got other photography now. Like, their difference here is...
Deviled eggs, man. That's
Yes.
70s-ish.
Oh, I love deviled eggs.
I do too, but I'm just.
Oh, I do too,
Can
yeah.
you make deviled eggs with Chobani? Is that what they're saying?
I guess so, but I guess you could use the plain Chobani yogurt, I guess, and
Oh.
I've never made deviled eggs.
Whip that in with the
but-
yolk, I guess. Yeah.
I'm gonna
Really
check
used to
that
them.
out.
That's it.
So product photography,
Yep.
right? And then you've got lifestyle
Lifestyle
photography.
photography, yep.
Okay, and then down here,
There's more.
culinary.
Yep.
So they've got sort of 3 different channels that they're
Sure.
using for their marketing, and they're very strategic about the kind of photography that they do for each one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, Chobani is a huge brand,
Sure. Sure.
and they've got several different advertising and marketing agencies kind of at their beck and call to develop their brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, see now these are actually photos you're showing here.
This
But
is
they-
internal.
Yeah. Internal
So
for
this
what?
is well, this is if you look on the on the right here. This is the employee handbook.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and then on the left is a benefits guide. This is the stuff that their employees get.
Sure. Well, what they're using in this is a photography effect called the painterly effect, where they try to make the photo look a little bit more like a painting
Mhm.
in the background, especially the one of the peach up in the right hand corner that you have there.
Yeah, it looks really.
It looks more like a painting as opposed to an actual photo, but that's a photograph.
Right.
So
But everything that they do, whether external or,
Or
internal,
internal.
now has this look and feel to it.
Sure.
It's got
Yeah.
a little bit of a 70s vibe. We're far enough away from the 70s now that a lot of people have sort of
forgotten the bell bottoms.
kind of, well, there's a certain nostalgia to it.
Yeah.
This was pre-internet,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is even just at the very, sort of at the beginning of processed foods. So there's a certain look and feel here that I think they're going for to say, yeah, we're still use fresh ingredients, but we're also a little bit hip,
Yeah.
and we've got a little bit of that 70s vibe going on. And it's sort of pre-digital, pre-internet, so it's going to have a certain appeal.
Sure.
My gosh, the hipsters have brought back everything.
Well, yeah, like Alicia was saying a few minutes ago, the Polaroids. Well, not necessarily Polaroids. I don't know what they are now. Fuji, I think, makes them. That they have the little Polaroid film
Yeah.
things you can buy, and
Right.
and it's come back in style. It's
Right,
right out in the
and
back.
and so this has a very kind of craft feel to it, and they're riding that wave.
So I guess if I'm a local business, and obviously I can't bring on like a multi-million-dollar advertising agency.
No.
But Justin, could I work with someone like yourself to put some of these pieces in place? And what are where would you start with a local company? Like, let's just say we can do a little kind of like scenario. Let's say Bob inherited his dad's HVAC company.
Mhm.
They've been operating since the 40s. Now he's the new owner. He's been working in the company, but he wants to appeal to newer Boston homeowners who want high top of the line HVAC systems, HVAC systems,
Yeah.
and air conditioning. How would you help take a brand from old to new, and what parts of what Chobani is doing could you do with the local company?
That's a good question. I think, when you're looking at a company like that, a small business, you do the same thing you do for a big company. You sit down, you have a conversation about, okay, where are you right now? Where would you like to be?
I like
You can
that.
still do all of that lead work, because that's important. That's the foundation for whatever you're going to do visually.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have that worked out, then your branding isn't going to have any weight to it.
It's not going to feel authentic.
It's not going to, yeah, exactly. It's not going to feel authentic.
You're just
So-
going to be another name on the Google search page.
Right.
So if you make it at all, that is.
Yeah.
Which is another
Honestly.
story.
But-
But once they click and they get through,
So you start with the conversations, and I think, the logo is obviously very important. And the visual identity system, so logo, colors, typography,
yeah.
these are the elements, sort of the building blocks, the Legos, if you will, that you can use to scale.
Yeah.
So let's say they're small now, but maybe the son who's taken over the business is looking to scale this business, and he wants to have 5 different locations in the next 5 years. So the branding has to be able to scale with it. So I usually start with sort of the basic building blocks of, the logo, a color palette, some typography, because these are things that you can then spread throughout your branding, whether it's print or whether it's online. So if
Yeah.
you build a website, you make sure that those colors, that logo, and that typography is integrated, because you want a consistent message no matter where somebody's touching that brand, whether it's they got a postcard in the mail, or they went to the website, or they're given an invoice, for the work. It's all got to have that same voice, like you mentioned
Yeah.
before.
And they also work that color palette into other areas, such as their photography, like you were showing the photos of Chobani. It's subtle, but some of their colors are actually in the backgrounds of the actual photography.
Mm-hmm.
So again, to fit that all within the whole color palette and the branding, like I said earlier, photography and videography all fall within that
Right.
realm.
So
And-
sorry, Justin. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I've heard photographers, like you say before, like when you're shooting stuff for an organization, either for a website or for whatever, you always like to have some sort of branding in the shot.
Sure,
So whether
sure.
it's signage or whether it's uniforms or shirts or
Or
hats,
just simple as a logo on a shirt. Yeah,
right? That should be part of that photo because that's your brand.
absolutely, absolutely. If I'm shooting a contractor, if they've got their name on their shirt, their logo on their shirt, I'm gonna make sure that that's
Or a truck.
or a truck. Or, if they've got the logo on their truck, I want to make sure that's front and center because that's their brand.
Yeah.
You want to be able to look at that photo or at that piece of video and say, okay, I know that's X company, whatever it happens to
Right.
be. That's why, like, I'll take for instance Apple. You can't look at an Apple ad without seeing that Apple logo.
Right.
It's there. It's front and center. They're very good about making sure you see that at all times, whether it's in their photography, whether it's in their print material, like
Yep.
you would do design wise. It's all there.
And that also bleeds right over into social media.
Right. We need those photos to make social media successful because customers can tell when the pictures aren't real. They can tell when they're stock images. And I think on social media, people expect to have an inside look to your business now. So I think with brands on social media, two things really come into play. Imagery, having those photos done and professionally done is important. And also your voice on social media.
Right.
Your voice comes through super strong on social media. So are you a law firm and do you need to stick to straight edge, or do you want to have a fun and trendy look if you're a new salon, or are you focused on we'll bring up HVAC again, or like home services? Is the voice to homeowners and making you feel safe and secure that we're coming into your home and we're going to provide you with the absolute best service possible? So what is that voice? And going back to your mission statement, going back to your color palette, going back to your images, that all comes through on social media.
So that color palette's going to show right back up on social media, and
Yep.
and it's important when you're dealing with social media because it's so much visual orientated nowadays. People have quick attention spans.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that the photo is matching with the branding, that
100%.
that the graphics that you're using, if you're using some sort of graphic, it needs to fit with the color palette, with the branding, with the whole 9 yards.
And-
if it doesn't, the client's going to catch that right away,
Yeah.
or the potential customer, I should say.
When you click
Catch
from
right
the
away.
website, or if you came to social media from like just a search or whatever, maybe you saw the product in the store or whatever, you really should feel that consistency. So you went from the website to the Facebook, it should have that same look and feel that you're almost, it's very consistent. And I think that this is my opinion. Someone may challenge it on, me on it. But for Facebook and these other social media channels, your profile picture should just remain your logo, because that's what people
Sure.
see in the feed. And so, I mean, you can play
Unless
with
your
it.
logo is your face.
Well, yeah,
Like Bill's.
like mine, yeah.
You could do that too. Yeah, I've seen some people do that.
But yeah, you
And
make
like
a great
add
point.
in like an element, like a photo element to the profile picture. But sometimes people will switch out like the profile picture to other elements, and I feel like they lose the brand when
Yeah,
they do that.
I think if you're going to use a photo I agree with you, first off, that you should use your logo as a profile picture in some way. But if you really, really feel like you have to have a profile pic that's a photo, have the logo within that photo.
Yes,
Like we were talking about a few
yes.
minutes ago, where you can have, the logo on a shirt or something like that. So at the very least, whoever's seeing that profile pic is gonna know, oh, that's from X company.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
I just realized one of the disadvantages of sitting between you guys is I feel like I'm at a tennis match.
Well, you know what? The next podcast we'll swap it up so that
All
way
right.
you're not the guy in the middle. How's that sound?
Not the guy in the middle.
Well, what else do we have left on the agenda here? I gotta see as far
Well,
as.
did we cover the question well enough that, if you're a small business, it's like, well, okay, how do I develop a successful brand? I've got a very modest budget. I can't obviously do what Chobani is doing or what some of these other larger brands are doing. So what can I do? And we talked about, consistency. Be consistent, and start with figuring out your mission and who
Yeah.
your audience is and what kind of personality you want to project. But maybe on some of the more practical aspects of that, I would say that the essentials would be a visual
I see what
identity.
you did there.
Visual
Okay.
identity, yeah.
A visual identity, and hopefully a visual identity system, something that can scale. But once you have that, I would say the next thing, a website is absolutely essential because it's your.
Well, does the logo come as part of the visual identity?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So website, and Alicia, would you say I know social media is important, but if someone said, well, I can't do everything, so where should I start? How would you advise them on what social media presence would be appropriate for them and would fit within their budget?
Yeah, I mean, go back to the personas and figure out where your customers are, and then look at your industry. So a service industry is going to struggle with Instagram because they're not going to have as many photos to feature versus a product industry. And think about where your customers are. So is it a younger crowd? Is it homeowners? Is it going to be, focused on professional services? So you need to have a LinkedIn, and you don't need to be on every social media channel. Just choose a few and bring your brand through strong.
Okay, and Bill, we know photography is important, imagery is important, so
Sure.
same kind of question. It's like, all right, we know that this is an important aspect of our branding, but
Excuse me.
we've got a modest budget. So where do we start, or how do we get the most bang for our buck?
That's a great question. It's kind of tough. It's always a tough one to answer because it really depends where their starting point is. If they already have a decent amount of imagery that's in decent shape, we got a lot more leeway to go with.
Okay.
Wow, I get a frog in my throat all of a sudden. Sorry. But if they don't, I want to start with the basics of just capturing the essence of who they are as a business. So part of that is sitting down with whoever is doing their branding and saying, oh, what are we looking to do as a company? What is our brand as a company? I gave an example in the webinar we did of UC Berkeley. They tend to use a more light and airy type of photograph.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be, okay, maybe they want more whimsical. Okay, so if they're a fun-loving company, I may be looking towards finding some more fun type of photos that we can do.
Well, you and I recently sat down with a potential client, and this was somebody in the trades, a contractor.
Sure. Yeah. Mhm.
And he's looking to market a specific piece of equipment. He's got this trailer that has a lot of different uses for it, and he wants to let his clientele know, hey, look, I provide this service. So we were talking to him about, well, what's the best way to market this? And in the course of the conversation, we said, well, you definitely, you want a kind of a beauty shot of this thing to show people what exactly it looks like, but you also want to kind of show it in action. So let's have some stuff where we can load it up and you can see like, oh, this is how I could use this. You want to sort of inspire people to go, oh, I can hire this guy to haul away construction waste, or I can use it to haul appliances, or sort of give them an opportunity to think about all the different ways. But one of the things that we talked about is he's got a couple of kids, and we said, well,
Have the kids in front of.
why don't we have the kids in the shot somewhere, either like controlling the dump aspect of it, the remote that dumps the trailer, or maybe just, with you in the photo as part of the beauty shot. And we said that would be a good way to sort of establish your brand as a family business. It's dad and, the two kids, and it projects a certain kind of image that I think would be a good differentiator for him.
And that's a good starting point for him.
Yeah.
Because then later on you can add in the more specialized shots where it might be somebody doing a yard cleanup where they could show this specific piece of equipment.
Right.
Yeah.
Or they could be showing how they do the dumping in real time.
Right.
So to speak.
But knowing he had a very modest budget, Bill and I were working really hard to figure out what can we fit in a one-day shoot.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's get as much we can out of a one-day shoot, and that'll get you started. And then, these photos can be used on print pieces.
Yes.
They can be used on his website. They can be used on his social media. There's a lot of different ways, once you have this asset, that you can put it to work for you. But if if you don't have this asset, you're really, I think, hamstrung.
Yes, yeah. You have to get over a lot of the clients that I work with are camera shy and they don't want pictures necessarily of themselves. But here's the thing, if you run or own a business, you are part of the business and those photos are necessary. And I don't have any like studies that support it statistically, but when we post pictures on social media of a business owner or a picture of staff or give the business a face, it yields really well with
It
the
gets more
audience.
hits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess wrapping this up, if we're working with a local business, and I think one of the points that I want to bring to the table is that as marketing experts, we follow these big brands. We see what they're doing. This is our job to know how they're making branding work, how their photography lays out professionally, and what they're doing on social media. So while you may not have a budget like Chobani or Starbucks, we are marketing professionals that want to bring those types of that level of marketing down to your budget with the same touches, the finishing touches, giving you the essentials that are going to get you where you need to go with your branding. So if you want to summarize like the main things that we focus on, or
so I guess what the question I'm hearing you say is, okay, if we're doing just a quick snapshot for each the three of us, what would be the first thing we focus on? For
we can
me,
start with Justin and
Bill
Bill
Justin,
here.
once you got, because obviously it all revolves around the branding, and you're the branding expert here. So
Great.
no pressure, huh?
Yeah, no pressure there. Well, like I said before, it starts with the conversation with the client, figuring out what their mission is, who their target audience is, what kind of image that they want to project. Who do they want to be, as a company, and then building a visual identity for them. Logo, color palette, imagery. And giving them something that then they can apply to all these different marketing channels. So that's where I would begin with them.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important that your designer, your photographer, and your social media expert are on the same page, because there's nothing worse than having a designer design a great website and a great branding package, and then you go and look at the social media and it doesn't match up with the brand, or you look at the photos and go, were those taken with an iPhone? What would they have done?
And
stock photos on the
you
website.
may decide that you want to bring in a writer too, to create some really compelling marketing copy that fits the brand.
Absolutely. And so those are the things you got to keep in mind when you're doing it. It's a whole package kind of thing, and the better that all pieces fit together as far as talking to one another, the better ultimately the brand identity is going to look, and the better your client's going to.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up today, we need to get Alicia to try the coffee milk.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do, because I just realized that we don't have the milk here.
Right.
It's up in the refrigerator. So we're going to cut film right about here and come back in a second. And we're back. We finally got the wonderful Autocrat sauce. Oh, go to the other camera. You got to
over here, right?
No, the one over there.
Oh, over here. Okay.
That one. There you go. The one over there.
So
go ahead. I'll let you go ahead. And
well,
talk about it.
we discovered that when we started working with Alicia, that Alicia is a transplant here from Connecticut, and Bill is a native Rhode Islander.
I am.
I'm not a native, but I've been here since 1986, and I think I blend well enough because I give directions by where things used to be.
So you're close.
I can at least pass for a local.
Sure.
But Alicia's, you've been here how many years?
I think it's 6 years about now, so maybe 5, I don't know, but something like that. So yeah, there's a whole list of things that
we discovered that she's never tried. So we said, okay, we're going to spend some time on these podcasts sort of introducing Alicia to different sort of Rhode Island things, Autocrat coffee syrup being one of them. So
I'm looking forward to the hot wieners, but that's another story.
We've got some coffee milk here, and so we're going to get Alicia's reaction to her first experience with
hold on,
coffee
Alicia,
milk.
Before you do that, hang on here.
Should we cheers?
Oh yeah, here's to marketing essentials.
I'll just cross the room. Hey, hang on one second here, Alicia. So we're going to get a close up on Alicia here. She's trying the coffee milk for the first time.
Yeah, this is like a big deal. This is Rhode Island hazing. Okay.
Yes.
Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
What do you think?
It's pretty sweet. It actually doesn't taste like coffee to me.
Well, I mean, I kind of mixed yours kind of light, so you can go heavier if you want.
I like it.
Try this.
You like it?
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
It
she likes
passes.
it. So we've hooked her onto something maybe.
Hey, Mikey, he likes
She
it.
likes it. She likes
All
everything.
right. Coffee milk. it
All
is.
right.
All
So we've now officially introduced her to one item from Rhode Island.
Right, and
Hey, I think I just got a great idea. Anybody that's watching this, something that is uniquely Rhode Island, have them send it to us.
Yeah.
And we'll have Alicia try it.
yeah. So go to our Facebook page.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Okay,
it.
so
Or our
on
website.
on
Or
Facebook. Well, which would you rather?
I think Facebook would probably be the best
Okay,
place
yeah,
to do that.
send us
Let's
a
have fun.
message.
Yeah.
So on our Facebook page, which is Marketing Essentials Team,
that camera.
Marketing Essentials Team.
Sorry, we're gonna use these cameras by about the eighth podcast.
We'll put a post up there saying what's the next unique Rhode Island experience that Alicia needs to have, and in the comments just put what your idea is, and we'll make a list and we'll get around to all of them eventually.
Now,
Yeah.
now keep in mind we already had a couple like Hot Wieners and Dells. Those are a couple of them, but
Right.
I know there's a lot of other ones out there that
She has been to Iggy's.
I have. That's
so
one
we
thing.
can
So.
we can put that one out. So I
Waiting
guess
for your suggestions.
I
I haven't had this in a while. I actually like this.
I guess this is the end of our second podcast.
Yep.
And cheers. And we'll see you guys soon.
Cheers.